What's up, fellas? My name is Tucker, and in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at some fake NBA offseason trades. If you enjoy the video, leave a like rating on it. Check out my socials up there as well, and let's go ahead and get started. Okay, this is something that I like to do from time to time, where I just go onto the NBA trade machine and see what other people are thinking, what some of the most upvoted trades are on the site. But I'm not just using everybody else's. I'm going to begin with a trade that I came up with. This one is not as crazy as some of the other ones that are going to be coming up in this video, but I was trying to think about some Kristaps Porzingis trades, and I was thinking, where could the upside of Porzingis still provide value while Dallas can get players back that are actually going to help them for this upcoming season? And what I landed on was Dallas getting Davis Bertans and Montrezl Harrell in exchange for Kristaps Porzingis going to Washington. Here's the mindset. So if you're Washington, one of their stated goals is that they are trying to create cap space moving forward. It's why they dumped the Russell Westbrook contract, so that they can bring in some top tier talent. I don't know how realistic that goal is. It at least provides them flexibility. But if you want to look at that in a bit of a longer term sense, Porzingis' contract does run out a year earlier than Bertans's. And so that does provide you some flexibility in the long term, mostly because of how bad Bertans's contract is. Now, on an annual basis, yes, Porzingis is going to cost more. You're taking on some salary here, but there is some upside there. And if you start thinking about Dinwiddie and Beal and Porzingis and all these other young guys that Washington has, it starts to look at least a little bit interesting. The Mavericks get a guy in Bertans that didn't have a great year last year, but theoretically is exactly what they need and what they've been asking for Kristaps Porzingis to do. Unless Jason Kidd has some big plans on how to create, great offense out of Kristaps Porzingis all of a sudden, they basically just asked the guy to be a spot-up shooter, and Bertans can do that much, much better than Porzingis, albeit without the defensive upside that the Mavericks hoped that they were getting when they traded for Porzingis in the first place. Then you get Montrezl Harrell as well, who is mostly here just to make the salary stuff work. But in the regular season, he can eat up minutes at the 5 spot, provide energy, and be a nice role man for you. The issue for Dallas here is that if you still see upside with Porzingis, you definitely are lowering that. You're taking on an extra year of the contract here in someone like Davis Bertans, and neither of these guys are guaranteed to have a huge impact in the postseason. If you're Dallas, you're planning on being a playoff team. Bertans, if he's shooting well, will play. Defensively, he might get exposed, and Harrell, we kind of know at this point, the cat's out of the bag. Montrezl Harrell is not a postseason player defensively, so that's definitely an issue. But if you want to look at possible Porzingis trades, that is one that I did want to throw out there. Now, let's get to the crazy ones. This one, the Warriors. I actually sneaky like this one. The Warriors get Goran Dragic and Pascal Siakam in exchange for, I don't know why the rookies are listed twice here, so ignore that, Wiggins, Wiseman, Kuminga, Moody, and 2 seconds. Okay, let's talk about this for Golden State first. Let's think about what their team now looks like. You've got, let's assume this is after Christmas, Clay comes back and Clay looks good, right? Steph, Clay, Draymond, Siakam, whoever you want to put at the 5 spot, Goran Dragic off the bench is a nice bench option. Reasons I don't like that. They are giving up all of their wing depth. Wiggins, Kuminga, Moody, they're all gone. They don't have anybody out there that can guard on the wing unless you're counting on Klay Thompson to be an outstanding defender the way he was pre-injury, which is a lot to ask out of a guy that is coming off of multiple serious, significant lower body injuries. Draymond obviously is a great team defender still, but I'm not asking Draymond to go out there and guard some of the best wings in the NBA. Obviously, that is a problem. I also don't like the fact that now you're kind of wondering, hey, what are they going to do with the 5 spot? It's not an irreplaceable thing, but it feels like a lot to give up for Siakam and Dragic when you're giving up 4 guys that are, in Moody's case, rotational, and the other 3 are potentially starters with potentially high upside here for Golden State. This is obviously in replacement of any kind of Lillard or Beal thing. The Siakam fit is very, very interesting to me because you could argue that he's an ideal player to play alongside Draymond Green because Draymond's going to do all this defensive stuff, and Siakam fits well within a structure that allows him to be elevated by everybody else. If you're counting on Siakam to be the main guy, it might not go great. If you're counting on him to be someone that is lifted up by other players, he can still be a very good shot creator, someone that can space the floor, can kind of just be all over the place. What I don't know if that works with is defensively, because you're basically asking Draymond to be a 5 without being the 5. And if that's your long-term plan defensively in the postseason, I just think that's going to get exhausting eventually. They have other bigs they can throw out there at the 5, but when you're thinking about your end-of-game lineup for Golden State, You don't have a five that you love unless it's Draymond for like the last 4 minutes of the game alongside Siakam in the front court, and you don't have a wing defender. Not that, Kuminga and Moody are going to be outstanding wing defenders initially, but I think the Wiggins loss is relatively significant here for them. And even though having Dragic off the bench is nice, I don't think that Siakam raises the ceiling of this group enough to justify giving up as much as they are. Now, on the flip side of this, if you're Toronto, the way I view this is essentially Dragic doesn't matter here. Dragic doesn't want to be there. There are going to be teams circling trying to get Goran Dragic all season long. I am essentially trading Pascal Siakam for a package that looks pretty similar to what you would be getting in exchange for Bradley Beal or maybe even someone like Damian Lillard. You're getting Wiggins, who I know people make fun of him, but Wiggins was a good NBA player last year and goes back to Canada and things like that. The contract is obviously gigantic, but Toronto, what do they care about the contract? It's not like they're planning on being contenders this season. Wiseman, Kuminga, and Moody, all of which could be really good players down the road and people that can certainly help this team moving forward. If I'm Toronto and someone, if Golden State offers me this tomorrow, I'm saying yes, and I'm really not thinking too much about it. Siakam had issues with Nick Nurse last year. This would be a fantastic Raptors trade. I think there are ways you could talk yourself into it for Golden State, but I don't love it for them. Next up, once again, the Warriors are involved as a 4-team deal. Ignore the Rondo part of this. It's fine. It still works without him. The Hornets get Steven Adams. The Warriors get Barnes, Anderson, Hield, Brooks, and a first. The Grizzlies get Wiggins, Bagley, Kuminga, and the Kings get, ignore Rondo, Oubre, Looney, Westwundu, and 2 seconds. Okay, so again, let's focus on the Warriors part of this. Instead of getting Beal, Lillard, Siakam, they're saying, you know what, that's nice, but we have stars. Like, we have Steph. If Clay is healthy, we have him. Let's just get a lot of really good players. Let's just get a lot of above average players. Let's have the best 8-man rotation in the NBA, and let's count on Steph to be a superstar, and that can be enough to get us to the finals. That's basically what they're saying. They're getting rid of Wiggins. They're getting rid of Kuminga. They still have Wiseman and Moody, but then you have Barnes that can guard. Anderson is there. Hield can shoot. Dylan Brooks is obviously a great two-way player, and you're getting a first-round pick from the Lakers as well for kind of some future assets here. So if you're the Warriors, it's not a star trade, obviously, but you could argue it's really good value unless you're just absolutely in love with what Jonathan Kuminga can provide on the floor. The Hornets have been trying to get a 5-man for forever. Obviously, they drafted one this year, but Steven Adams could be an interesting fit for them just for this season as someone that can raise the floor of that group. The Grizzlies, I know there are Grizzlies fans that I'm sure are watching this and thinking, why are we giving up Dylan Brooks and Kyle Anderson? What is happening? Well, we talked about them in a previous video where they're trying to get upside players, right? They're trying to raise their ceiling, and they're certainly doing that. Saying what you can say what you want about Wiggins, but like I said, I think he's a decent player. Bagley provides some possible upside, and then Kuminga could potentially be a really, really good wing down the road. And yes, you're giving up Anderson and Brooks and Adams in a first, but if you're just looking to raise the ceiling of your team, this could be an interesting one. And then the Kings, I mean, they're giving up Barnes, Hield, and Bagley, and they're getting back nothing great, but if you view some of these players as negative assets or you don't think they have a ton of value, maybe it could make sense for them. This feels like the Kings were in this, and then whoever made this trade just kind of tried to make something work for them at the end. I don't think there's a ton of reason for the Kings to be involved here. Maybe you give them the first that the Warriors are getting here, but I included this because it's interesting, because it is a different take on what the Warriors could possibly do, going away from kind of the general consensus of they're going to go and get a star, which is why I think it's interesting. 2 more here. The Sixers getting Aminu, Murray, Eubanks, and 3 seconds, in exchange for Ben Simmons. It's not a good Ben Simmons package. DeJounte Murray is a nice player, and theoretically he fits decently well with the Sixers, even though he's not going to space the floor incredibly well. This is not a good Ben Simmons package. The Sixers are not going to be excited about this. I'm using this as a placeholder to talk about how excited I would be if Ben Simmons did end up in San Antonio in exchange for some combination of their guards or some kind of 3-team structure where they give up a few of their guards and they get back Simmons. Because I think, okay, what does Ben Simmons need? Ben Simmons needs to be a bit more of a focal point. He needs to be a guy that has the ball in his hands a lot. He needs to be in an environment in which he's allowed to grow, develop, and flourish, and he needs to work on his jump shot. All of that to me screams San Antonio. Maybe I'm being too optimistic about them, and I'm thinking about the Spurs from 5 years ago, and they don't have the same ability to develop players and work on their jump shot that they used to. But even though it might not be the flashiest place for Ben Simmons to be, I think that could possibly be a really good thing for him. And again, I'm just using this as a placeholder of Ben Simmons on the Spurs is very exciting. It's very interesting to me. This is not a good Ben Simmons package, though. And then last up now, another 4-teamer, once again involving Ben Simmons, and it involves the Timberwolves, but interestingly, the Timberwolves are not the team that ends up with Simmons, despite the fact that they seem to be a team near the top of the list for Simmons. The Timberwolves get Tolliver, Anderson, and Turner. The Pacers get Simmons, Beasley, and Reed. The Grizzlies get Taurean Prince and a top 10 protected first from Minnesota, and the Sixers get TJ Warren and Malcolm Brogdon. So Minnesota gets a 5 that could potentially play alongside Karl-Anthony Towns. You can play Turner and Cat together, I guess. The Pacers are getting Simmons, which raises their ceiling. We've talked about in the past that it was offered, Brogdon in a first in exchange for Simmons. We know there's some interest there. And they get Beasley, who's a nice wing as well. The Grizzlies are getting rid of Kyle Anderson, and they're getting back Taurean Prince in a first. Again, they're just trying to get some future assets here. And the Sixers are just trying to get players that are going to help them. TJ Warren can score, can shoot a little bit, can defend a little bit, and Malcolm Brogdon is a backcourt player that fits their needs. Despite this not being the flashiest Ben Simmons trade package of all time, I don't necessarily think that it's unrealistic. It's interesting that Minnesota is involved, but they don't get Simmons. I don't love the Turner Cat fit, but this does at least help Minnesota in an immediate sense, getting some just competent NBA players on their roster to where maybe they can be a playoff team this year. That would obviously be the goal, given the fact that they're giving up a future pick. And then I've already kind of talked about raising the Pacers ceiling, and then the Sixers, theoretically, this is a trade that works. My problem every time I see a Simmons trade like this is there's no focal point of the trade. If Daryl Morey is going to trade Ben Simmons, I don't think he's going to be able to sell, hey, we're getting Malcolm Brogdon and TJ Warren. I just don't think that he's going to be able to sell that to ownership. I think that he needs a focal point. He needs a centerpiece. He needs something exciting and flashy to trade away Simmons. And maybe that's becoming increasingly difficult to do, and he eventually has to settle for a package similar to this. But that's my biggest issue with it. And yeah, that's going to be the end of today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, leave a like rating on it. Check out more videos from me. The box is on screen. And check out my socials in the description. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, hope you guys have an awesome rest of your day. And I will see you all next time.